Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today, collectors look back at this simple piece of pocket change and see something far more fascinating than an ordinary coin. They see history stamped in metal, a story of design, scarcity, minting practices, and hidden value. And that is exactly what we're diving into today: the 1958 Jefferson nickel, the mint marks, the rarity, the condition, and ultimately, what these coins can be worth in today's collector market. So settle in, because this isn't just about a nickel. This is about the legacy of American coinage, the decisions of the U.S. Mint, and the surprising value that an unassuming 5-cent piece can hold more than 60 years after it was struck. Before we talk about the value of the 1958 nickel, we need to understand where this coin fits into history. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Felix Schlag's design, with Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, became one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage. By 1958, the design had already been in use for 2 decades. Americans were familiar with the portrait. They'd seen it through World War II, through rationing, through the Korean War, and into the post-war economic boom. The nickel was a reliable companion of commerce, always there, never glamorous, but always useful. In fact, the 1958 nickel holds a special place in the series because it sits just before major changes struck American coinage. Within just a few years, the Philadelphia Mint would adopt more modern minting procedures, and the Jefferson nickel would eventually undergo a dramatic redesign. So the 1958 issue is one of the final years of the classic Jefferson nickel style before a new era unfolded, but the story becomes even more interesting when you consider the mint marks. In 1958, Jefferson nickels were struck at 2 major locations, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Philadelphia coins of that time bore no mint mark, while Denver coins featured a small D mint mark on the reverse. Now here is where collectors lean in a little closer, because the mintage numbers for this year were surprisingly low compared to surrounding years. And when mintage falls, scarcity rises. When scarcity rises, collectors start paying attention. The Philadelphia Mint produced around 17 million nickels in 1958. That might sound like a lot, but compared to other years in the series where production soared into the hundreds of millions, it's downright small. The Denver Mint struck even fewer, making the D mint mark version especially interesting. These lower mintages are one of the reasons why the 1958 nickel has gradually become more appealing to collectors. But mint mark alone doesn't guarantee value. Condition matters a lot. Let's talk about condition, because for the 1958 Jefferson nickel, condition is everything. Most nickels that circulated heavily are worth little more than face value. They've been through thousands of transactions, jingled in pockets, scraped across countertops, and lost their mint luster long ago, but those rare survivors, the nickels that somehow avoided circulation, were tucked away in rolls, stored in boxes, or preserved as part of collections. These are the coins that can spark a collector's excitement. Look for sharp details on Jefferson's hair, the steps on Monticello, and the overall shine of the coin. The famous full steps designation on the reverse can dramatically increase value because it's a sign of a strong strike. A 1958 nickel with crisp, full steps can be considered a gem in the Jefferson nickel world. Combine that condition with a lower mintage, and now we're talking about real desirability, especially among specialists who collect Jefferson nickels by date, mint mark, and grade. But what makes this coin even more interesting is the fact that many 1958 nickels were not struck with the strongest dies. That means finding high-grade examples today can be incredibly difficult. And when something is difficult to find, it becomes more valuable. A golden rule of numismatics. Another reason the 1958 nickel earns collector attention is because it represents a moment in minting history where subtle variation sometimes occurred. While the 1958 issue is not known for major errors, there are occasional minor striking anomalies like weak steps, die wear, or slight misalignments. These small quirks can add to a coin's charm, even if they don't dramatically increase its monetary value. But beyond all the technical details, the mint marks, the condition, the scarcity, there's something else that makes the 1958 nickel special. It is a time capsule. When you hold a 1958 Jefferson nickel today, you're holding a piece of an America that was changing quickly. Interstate highways expanded, suburban life exploded, and space exploration captured imaginations. It was the era of diners, drive-in movie theaters, and the birth of rock and roll. Coins like the Jefferson nickel traveled through all of that. They were passed from hand to hand in a world so different from today. And for many collectors, that nostalgic connection is just as valuable as metal and rarity. So now the question you've been waiting for: what is a 1958 Jefferson nickel worth? Well, the value can vary widely depending on the grade. A circulated nickel from 1958 might still be worth only a few cents or a modest premium. But collectors don't hunt for circulated coins, they want the high-grade, sharply struck, brilliant pieces, and when a 1958 Jefferson nickel is found in exceptional condition, especially one with a desirable mint mark and preserved detail, it can command a surprising price in the collector marketplace. In fact, some high-grade examples of this coin have been sold for impressive amounts, especially when authenticated and graded by respected coin certification services. The value comes from a combination of low mintage, difficulty of finding high-quality survivors, and the increasing interest in the Jefferson nickel series among modern collectors. What once was a simple 5-cent piece has today become a little treasure for those who appreciate fine details, numismatic history, and the artistry of American coinage. Now, before we conclude, let's take a moment to imagine the journey of a 1958 nickel. Picture it being struck with brilliant shine at the mint, sliding down metal chutes into bags, traveling on trucks across states, entering circulation, or maybe being tucked away by someone who suspected it might be worth saving. Decades passed. The world changed, money changed, the value of 5 cents changed, yet this one coin, this small embossed piece of metal, survived. It carries with it the echoes of 1950s America, the artistry of Schlag's design, and the craftsmanship of the mint. That's what makes numismatics meaningful. Coins are storytellers, silent historians. And the 1958 Jefferson nickel is no exception. We're diving deep into the story of this coin, what makes it special, how you can identify the valuable ones, and the price collectors talk about most. So settle in, because this is more than just a nickel. This is a journey through American minting, the evolution of modern coinage, and the hidden treasures many people overlook. A look back at 1980. The year 1980 was unique in the United States. It was the beginning of a decade filled with new music, shifting cultural attitudes, economic changes, and technological growth. While people were living through political tensions, rising inflation, and the dawn of the digital age, the United States Mint continued its steady production of coinage for everyday commerce. In Denver, Colorado, home of the D Mint mark, the mint struck millions of Jefferson nickels, each bearing the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson and the iconic front-facing view of his home, Monticello. To the average person, these coins were nothing more than loose change. But to coin enthusiasts, every year and every mint mark presents an opportunity. Even modern-era coins have stories behind their creation, variations in design, and occasional minting issues that spark the interest of collectors searching for something extraordinary. The 1980 D nickel falls right into that category. While most are common, a select segment earns special attention because of condition, rarity in high grades, or even subtle errors that escaped mint quality control. The design that defined an era. The Jefferson nickel has one of the most recognizable designs in U.S. coinage. Created by artist Felix Schlag in 1938, the design remained relatively unchanged for decades. On the obverse, we see the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, statesman, diplomat, and third President of the United States. The motto, "In God We Trust," is positioned along the left rim, while "Liberty" and the date line the right. Flip the coin over, and Monticello takes center stage. This iconic Virginia estate stands as a symbol of Jefferson's architecture, intellect, and legacy. The building's dome design is beautifully centered on the coin's reverse, accompanied by inscriptions including E Pluribus Unum, the denomination, and the country's name. The simplicity and symmetry of the design are what made the series endure. And for collectors, even the smallest variation in this long-standing design, whether caused by wear, dye polishing, or striking issues, can significantly affect a coin's value. The importance of the Denver Mint mark. Mint marks matter deeply in the world of coin collecting. The D mint mark on the 1980 nickel indicates it was struck in Denver, one of the major coin-producing facilities in the United States. Denver minted coins from this period are generally well-made and plentiful. But as any collector knows, high-quality production doesn't mean every coin came out perfect. Coins struck at high speeds or with overused dies can develop faint details, weak strikes, or misalignments. Occasionally, more dramatic errors appear, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks. These anomalies create the small percentage of coins that collectors chase with enthusiasm. Even without errors, the Denver mint mark can still be important. High-grade examples of the 1980 D nickel, preserved in pristine condition for decades, have become surprisingly desirable. Most nickels circulated heavily. Few were saved. Fewer survived untouched. Why condition matters so much when it comes to modern coins like the 1980 D Jefferson nickel. Condition is everything. Collectors use a grading scale that ranges from poor all the way up to mint state 70. Coins that saw heavy circulation show scratches, dull surfaces, loss of definition, and other forms of wear that dramatically reduce value, but the rarest and most desirable 1980 D nickels are the ones that somehow escaped that fate. These are the coins that remained untouched, unspent, and carefully preserved. Their steps on Monticello appear sharp. Jefferson's cheek and jawline display crisp contours. The surfaces glow with original luster. Coins like that did not come from pocket change. They often came from old rolls, forgotten envelopes, or carefully stored mint sets. For these reasons, collectors actively search for 1980 D Jefferson nickels in top-tier condition, hoping to find one that stands out above the millions. The craftsmanship and the quirks minting technology in 1980 was far more advanced than in earlier decades, but imperfections still slipped through. And in the world of numismatics, imperfections are treasures. Some collectors specifically look for die cracks, thin raised lines on the coin where the die itself cracked during production. Others look for extra metal caused by die chips. Some hope for those fascinating yet subtle misalignments that give a coin character. Every tiny variation tells a story of how the coin was made. Every unusual detail becomes a clue that something different happened during the minting process. And these stories, combined with physical evidence, are what turn a common nickel into something undeniably collectible. What makes the 1980 D nickel appealing today? Many collectors enjoy this coin because it represents a turning point in modern American coinage. Older nickels from the 1930s through the early 1960s are already well established in the collectible market. Meanwhile, ultramodern nickels struck after 2004 introduced new designs and marked a shift in artistic style. The 1980 D nickel sits comfortably between these eras, a solid example of the classic Jefferson design, produced during a time of national change, yet modern enough that collectors can still find high-quality examples at reasonable prices. It strikes a perfect balance for collectors seeking both nostalgia and affordability. For younger collectors, it's the kind of coin that helps build foundational knowledge. For experienced collectors, it's another piece in the wider puzzle of nickel history. And for investors, rare high-grade pieces offer long-term potential as the supply of pristine coins continues to shrink. Searching for valuable examples. If you're interested in finding a collectible 1980 D Jefferson nickel, the hunt can be both fun and rewarding. You can start by checking your old change jars or rolls of nickels. Even though most circulated examples won't be worth much, you might come across something unexpectedly sharp or well-preserved. The best places to find high-grade examples are coin shops, auctions, and online marketplaces where sellers offer certified coins. Certified coins are graded by professional services, sealed in protective holders, and labeled with their grade and mint information. These sealed pieces carry greater trust and value in the market. When evaluating a 1980 D nickel yourself, look closely at the strike. Pay attention to the steps of Monticello. Sharp, clearly defined steps can dramatically increase value. Examine Jefferson's face for clarity. Look for luster that appears even, reflective, and undisturbed. And always keep an eye out for unusual features, die cracks, chips, or other anomalies that can elevate interest. The legacy of the Jefferson nickel series. It's amazing how much history can be held in such a small metal disc. The Jefferson nickel represents decades of American culture, politics, and artistry. For generations, these coins passed through the hands of people buying groceries, riding buses, and collecting change from the week's labor. The coins witnessed moments in time, big and small, that shaped the nation. Collecting coins like the 1980 Jefferson nickel is more than a hobby. It's a way to feel connected to the past. It's a way to appreciate craftsmanship that many people overlook. And it's a reminder that even the most ordinary-looking object can hold extraordinary value when viewed through the eyes of history. Closing thoughts. So, the next time you come across a nickel from the 1980s, don't be so quick to toss it aside. Look at it carefully. Study the details. Imagine where it has been, the hands it has passed through, and the story it carries. The 1980 Jefferson 5-cent nickel is a perfect example of how everyday change can transform into a collectible treasure. Journey brings us face to face with a small piece of American history that continues to fascinate collectors. The 1984 mint marked Jefferson 5-cent nickel. As the camera settles on a single nickel placed right in the center of the frame, viewers are reminded that some of the most extraordinary stories don't come from gold bars or ancient relics. Sometimes, they come from coins most people used to exchange for candy, bus fares, or an afternoon soda. The Jefferson nickel is one of those coins, humble in appearance, but rich in history and character. And the 1984 example, struck in Denver, carries a story that blends design, minting technology, economics, and collector excitement. Before diving into all the fun details, the script shifts into a quick exploration of where the Jefferson nickel comes from. The design is iconic, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, sculpted by Felix Schlag, the artist who won the coin's design competition in 1938. His portrait of Jefferson, along with the reverse image of Monticello, became a symbol of American stability, coins that remained steady in circulation for decades as the nation evolved through wars, cultural shifts, economic booms, and technological revolutions. The 1984 nickel was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the United States' most productive facilities. In the early 1980s, the Denver Mint was turning out billions of coins each year, keeping up with American commerce. The 1984 Jefferson nickel alone had a striking mintage of more than 300 million, making it a common coin in pocket change at the time. Yet, as collectors know, high mintages do not automatically make coins uninteresting. In fact, the sheer quantity only raises a new question: among those millions, which ones stand out? Which ones escaped the scratches, nicks, and dents of circulation? Which ones survived in almost perfect condition? The story continues by taking viewers back to life in the United States in 1984. Ronald Reagan was president, the country was in the midst of economic recovery, the Los Angeles Olympics captivated the world, and everyday Americans were living through a time of technological optimism. Nickel coins jingled in the pockets of people buying newspapers, calling on payphones, or grabbing snacks from a vending machine. Somewhere in all of those daily transactions, the little 1984 Jefferson nickel was quietly doing its job. Yet today, collectors search for examples in pristine condition, ones that look as if they were never touched by human hands. The script now guides viewers into the heart of what makes a 1984 nickel potentially valuable. Even though millions exist, only a tiny number were preserved in nearly perfect condition, coins that avoided wear, avoided scratches, and kept sharp details in Jefferson's hair, jawline, and coat. Collectors evaluate these details based on grading standards, which rank coins from bare bones, good condition all the way up to mint state, where the coin still retains its original mint luster. Mint state coins are the true gems among modern-era Jefferson nickels. In this condition, the coin glows under the light, reflecting the fine craftsmanship of the Denver Mint die engravers. Collectors especially pay attention to the steps on Monticello on the reverse side. These steps must appear sharp and well-struck to achieve what numismatists call full steps, a designation given to the best-struck Jefferson nickels. A 1984 nickel with full steps becomes significantly more desirable. Even coins without the full steps designation can be appealing if they remain brilliantly preserved. The narrative then pulls viewers deeper into the emotional side of coin collecting. It describes the thrill of discovering a brilliant coin hidden inside an old collection, or even tucked away in an inherited box from a family member. Many collectors have stories about stumbling across what seems like an unremarkable nickel, only to realize it is a rare survivor of time, a piece of American minting history worth adding to their collection. The 1984 D nickel can sometimes be that kind of discovery, especially when found in exceptional condition. Transitions take the viewer to the Denver Mint itself, painting a vivid picture of the massive machinery that struck these coins in the 1980s. High-speed presses stamping metal blanks with Jefferson's image, employees inspecting production lines, and countless coins cascading into bins. This industrial ballet resulted in millions of identical pieces, yet the tiny variations in striking pressure, die lifespan, and metal flow created subtle differences. These differences, barely noticeable to the untrained eye, are what seasoned collectors learn to identify. They know that a well-struck example is not something to take for granted. The script also touches on the composition of the nickel, 75% copper and 25% nickel. This alloy has been used for decades and gives the coin its familiar silvery appearance. Even though it lacks precious metals, collectors value the coin for its historical significance and condition rather than intrinsic metal worth. Some viewers may be surprised to learn that even modern circulating coins can have collector premiums far beyond their face value, depending entirely on rarity of condition and demand within the collecting community. At this point, the story shifts into a more personal, reflective tone. The narrator speaks about the sentimental value many collectors attach to their coins. A 1984 D nickel might remind someone of childhood purchases, or of a relative who kept jars of change on their dresser. A single coin can reopen memories in ways that no other everyday object can. And that emotional connection is one of the reasons coin collecting remains such a beloved hobby across generations. Now the script turns toward helping viewers understand what makes one particular 1984 D nickel stand out today. It explains how collectors look at luster, sharpness, preservation, and strike quality. A flawless coin may have been removed from circulation immediately after minting, perhaps saved in a mint set or placed in a coin holder before it ever had the chance to be scratched or worn. Only these carefully preserved examples capture the full beauty of the Jefferson nickel design. And for those coins, the value can exceed expectations. As the narrative moves closer to the closing segment, viewers are reminded of how exciting the world of coin collecting can be. Even a small nickel minted in 1984 can spark curiosity, appreciation, and desire among collectors. The narrator encourages viewers to inspect their own change, to check those old jars stored in the closet, or to revisit family coin albums that haven't been opened in years. Treasures are sometimes hiding in plain sight. The camera slowly zooms back into the coin on the table, bright, detailed, and full of character. The script describes the tiny features: Jefferson's calm profile, the crisp lettering, the smooth edge, and the classical architecture of Monticello. Every detail carries the weight of American history and craftsmanship. This particular coin, preserved so beautifully, shines with a value far beyond its humble 5-cent face. The closing words build to the final moment, connecting emotion, collecting passion, and the coin's market appeal. This is where the narrator delivers the final detail the viewer has been waiting for: the price that collectors might pay for a high-grade 1984 D Jefferson nickel. The camera settles, the music softens, and the narrator delivers the final line clearly, in both number and words exactly as instructed. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating pieces of modern American numismatics, the 1987 D Mint Mark Jefferson nickel. Now, at first glance, this coin might seem like your everyday 5-cent piece, the kind you'd find tossed in a drawer or rolling around in the cup holder of an old pickup truck. But as collectors know, sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins carry some of the most extraordinary stories. And in the case of the 1987 D Jefferson nickel, the value these coins can reach under the right circumstances may genuinely surprise you. So grab your loupe, dust off your collection box, and get ready, because today we're uncovering the history, the quirks, the minting details, the collector demand, and the surprising value of this often overlooked nickel. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at a simple 5-cent coin the same way again. A look back in time. Let's rewind to the year 1987. The United States was in an era of massive cultural, economic, and political change. Ronald Reagan was president. The stock market had just endured the shock of Black Monday. Pop culture was exploding with new music, technology, and entertainment. And in the middle of all this, millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels were quietly being struck at the Denver Mint. The Jefferson nickel series itself had already been circulating for nearly half a century by that point. First introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, the Jefferson design became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. By 1987, the coin's portrait of Thomas Jefferson was familiar to every American, and the reverse featured the iconic Monticello, Jefferson's architectural masterpiece and lifelong home. Even though the design remained largely unchanged, every minting year came with its own little quirks, slight variations in strike quality, metal flow, die wear, die polishing, and of course, demand from collectors. And 1987 was no exception. The Denver Mint, a coin-producing powerhouse now. What makes the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel stand out begins with its birthplace, the Denver Mint. Known for producing massive quantities of circulating coinage, the Denver Mint, marked by the tiny D beneath Monticello, churned out over 638 million nickels that year. With numbers that high, you might think these coins are all extremely common, and in circulated condition. That's mostly true. But the story changes once you start looking at the finest surviving examples. Because out of hundreds of millions of coins, only a tiny fraction survive in pristine, high-grade condition. And even fewer show the kind of sharp details, clean surfaces, and perfect mint luster that collectors fight over. In the numismatic world, condition is everything. And the 1987 D is a perfect example of how rarity doesn't always come from low production. Sometimes it comes from survival rates, strike quality, and the simple fact that almost nobody saved these coins when they were brand new. What collectors look for when searching for a valuable 1987 D. Jefferson nickel. There are several key things collectors pay special attention to. Let's break them down one by one. First, the strike quality. The Jefferson nickel can be notorious for weak strikes, especially on Jefferson's hair and the steps of Monticello. If a coin shows razor-sharp details, crisp edges on every letter, defined hair strands, and well-struck windows and lines on the Monticello building, that's the first sign you may have something special. Then there's the luster. Coins that retain their brilliant, original mint shine are significantly more desirable. A gleaming, untouched surface tells collectors that the coin likely sat uncirculated for decades, escaping pockets, vending machines, and junk drawers, and of course, there's surface preservation. Every scratch, ding, nick, or slide mark from coin rolls lowers a coin's grade. A high-value 1987 D nickel needs to appear nearly flawless under magnification, with clean fields and no distracting marks. All of these factors combine to determine one of the most important aspects of coin collecting, the grade. The power of grading. Coin grading is like the report card of the numismatic world. The higher the grade, the more impressive the coin, and the more money it can bring. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale, with mint state grades running from MS60 up to the coveted MS67, MS68, and occasionally higher. Now, most 1987 D nickels fall somewhere in the lower range if circulated, or the mid-range if uncirculated but bag-marked. But once in a while, a stunning gem emerges, something with exceptional strike, perfect luster, and virtually no flaws. Those coins, sitting at MS66 and above, are what drive collectors wild. Their rarity skyrockets, their desirability surges, and their auction prices can leap far beyond what most people expect from a nickel minted in the late 1980s. That's where the value of this coin truly reveals itself, why this nickel can be worth so much. So what makes a 1987 D nickel worth significantly more than face value? It comes down to a simple equation. A massive mintage inflated the supply of ordinary examples, but the supply of ultra-high-grade examples is incredibly small. Combine that with registry set competitions, where collectors try to assemble the finest graded set possible, and suddenly even modern coins become highly sought after. Collectors building top-tier Jefferson nickel sets need the absolute best example of every date and mint mark. And because so few 1987 D nickels exist in top grades, competition becomes fierce. It's basic economics: high demand, low supply, big value. Dealers and collectors often highlight how the 1980s nickels, despite being relatively modern, are surprisingly difficult to find in true gem quality because of heavy bag marks during shipping, weak strikes, and inconsistent minting processes. This gives the 1987D a unique position, making it one of the standout modern Jefferson nickels in the series. Eye appeal: the secret ingredient beyond grade alone. There's another factor every collector cares about: eye appeal. Two coins with the same technical grade can look dramatically different. A coin with bold luster, golden or rainbow toning, and clean fields can command a premium far beyond a dull or spotted example. Some 1987D nickels develop gorgeous toning from decades stored in mint sets or envelopes, giving them a warm halo of color that makes them stand out visually. These beautifully toned coins often sell for far more than their standard untoned counterparts, especially among collectors who prioritize artistic character in their coins. Eye appeal doesn't change the story of the coin, it transforms it. Errors and varieties: while the 1987D Jefferson nickel isn't known for a long list of dramatic errors, a few notable pieces have appeared over the years. These include off-center strikes, die cracks, die chips, and occasional misaligned dies. Though none are widely recognized as major varieties, collectors always keep an eye out for unusual features because error coins can bring impressive premiums. Even a minor die break or extra metal bump on Jefferson's eye or Monticello's dome can turn an ordinary nickel into something a bit more special. So it's always worth examining 1987D coins closely, especially if you find one that looks out of the ordinary. How to find valuable examples today? The good news is, you can still find high-quality 1987D nickels out there if you know where to look. The best sources include old mint sets, forgotten coin folders, inherited collections, or bulk lots purchased from dealers. While a majority of examples won't be high-grade, the search is part of the excitement for collectors. Every once in a while, someone discovers a hidden gem that sat untouched for decades, shining like it did the day it left the Denver Mint. Even circulation finds are possible, though increasingly rare. Millions of these nickels still circulate, and you never know when one might appear in your change or in a bank roll. The possibility of finding a valuable coin hiding in plain sight is one of the reasons so many people fall in love with coin collecting in the first place. Closing thoughts: the 1987D Jefferson nickel is a perfect example of how even modern coins, ones we often overlook or take for granted, can hold fascinating stories and surprising value. It reminds us that history can be found anywhere: in our pockets, our old jars of loose change, or the boxes we inherited from relatives long gone. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone just starting to explore numismatics, this little 5-cent piece from 1987 encourages curiosity, careful examination, and appreciation for the craftsmanship of American coinage. So the next time you see a nickel with that tiny D beneath Monticello, take a moment to look more closely. You might be holding something far more special than just 5 cents.